The toddler's laughter echoed through the bright room as the three fluffy puppies watched him with an odd, unsettling focus. Their tiny tails wagged in perfect unison, yet something in their synchronized stillness made the maid pause mid-step. Every morning the toddler crawled toward them, giggling, unaware that their eyes tracked him with eerie precision each time. The puppies weren't acting like ordinary, playful pups. Their attention seemed sharp, calculated, almost protective in a strange way. As sunlight spilled across the carpet, the maid noticed scratches near the sofa, marks too deliberate to be random puppy play. She knelt closer, her heartbeat rising as she realized the scratches formed a repeated pattern, like a warning etched silently. Meanwhile, the toddler clapped happily, unaware that the puppies shuffled in front of him as if shielding him from something unseen. The maid felt a cold wave crawl up her spine, sensing the pups were reacting to more than simple affection toward the child. One puppy glanced back at her with an expression far too focused, its ears stiffening at a sound she couldn't hear at all. The room felt heavier, the air strangely tense, as though something hidden lingered just outside the edges of ordinary comfort. She took a step forward, determined to observe more closely, when a faint vibration trembled through the floor beneath her feet. The puppies instantly snapped their heads toward the hallway, tongues lowering, their playful innocence fading into alert silence. The maid froze as the puppies formed a tight row, their bodies tense, eyes locked on the dim hallway like trained guardians. The toddler's laughter faded into soft curiosity as he crawled toward them, sensing their sudden shift in energy. A low rumble, barely audible, pulsed beneath the wooden floorboards, as though something massive stirred below the house. The maid's breath hitched when she noticed the puppy's fur bristle, rising slowly as if reacting to a silent threat. The faint vibration grew stronger, shaking a small vase on the nearby table until it rattled against the polished wood. She stepped toward the hallway, but the smallest puppy growled low, blocking her path with surprising determination. Its gaze pleaded and warned at the same time, urging her to stay back from whatever waited beyond the shadows. The sunlight flickered suddenly as if something passed behind the curtains, darkening the room for a brief, heavy moment. The toddler whimpered softly, reaching for the puppies, confused by their sudden protective stance and tense behavior. The maid bent down, steadying the toddler, whispering reassurances she herself didn't believe as fear gripped her chest. Another distant thud echoed from the hallway, deeper and heavier than any normal sound a house should ever make. The puppies barked sharply, a unified warning, forcing the maid to realize they weren't afraid. They were preparing. The maid clutched the toddler tightly as the hallway lights flickered, each spark revealing fleeting shadows shifting unnaturally. A cold draft swept through the living room, though every window was shut, carrying a metallic scent that twisted her stomach. She scanned the hallway again, noticing faint scratch marks trailing along the wall, marks matching the pattern under the sofa. The puppies stepped forward in slow unison, positioning themselves between the toddler and the hallway with uncanny precision. Their growls synced like a single voice, vibrating through the room and making the maid's hands tremble against the carpet. Her mind raced, wondering why the family never mentioned strange noises or why the puppies acted more like trained protectors. A soft tapping echoed from the dark corridor, rhythmic, intentional, like steps that hesitated, as if listening for movement. The toddler pressed his face against her shoulder, sensing the tension, whimpering at the unsettling silence that followed. A floorboard creaked deep inside the hallway, bending slightly as though something heavy shifted its weight forward. The maid held her breath and leaned toward the puppies, whispering for them to stay close, though she knew they already would. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting not fear but determination, as if confronting a danger they recognized. Another tap echoed, closer now, forcing the maid to realize whatever lingered in the hallway was deliberately approaching. The maid backed toward the center of the room, her grip tightening on the toddler as the temperature dropped unnaturally fast. A faint humming sound began to rise, vibrating through the walls, making picture frames tremble with an eerie, stuttering rhythm. The puppies crouched lower, muscles tense, their eyes tracking something moving in the darkness she still couldn't see. Suddenly the hallway's shadow stretched farther than the light allowed, as if something invisible was warping the space. The toddler pointed toward it with a shaky finger, whispering a sound she'd never heard him make. A frightened, broken syllable. The maid tried to speak, but her throat tightened, her voice swallowed by the oppressive weight thickening in the room. A loud bang erupted from the hallway, making the floor shudder and sending dust drifting down from the ceiling tiles. The puppies lunged a step forward, barking sharply, their voices echoing like alarms meant to warn of incoming danger. The maid's heartbeat pounded so loudly she feared it might echo, alerting the unseen presence lurking beyond the doorway. She reached for her phone, but the screen flickered, glitching strangely before shutting off despite having full battery. The humming sound shifted into a low, guttural thrum, vibrating through her bones, making her stumble backward in fear. Then, silence. Deep, consuming silence, as if the entire house held its breath, waiting for what came next. The silence shattered when the far end of the hallway emitted a slow creak, like a door opening though no door existed there. A faint, distorted whisper drifted out, too garbled to understand, yet sharp enough to freeze the maid's thoughts instantly. The puppies stepped backward, not in fear, but guiding the toddler behind them with gentle nudges and protective precision. The walls trembled again, and the scratch marks on the hallway wall began to deepen on their own, as if carved by unseen claws. The maid grabbed the toddler's blanket from the floor, clutching it like a shield, though she knew it offered no real protection. The whisper grew clearer, forming syllables that resembled the toddler's name, spoken in a voice that did not belong here. Her knees weakened, and she felt the air grow denser around her, pressing down like an unseen force cornering its prey. One puppy suddenly barked so loud it snapped her out of her stupor, its eyes fixed on a spot where the shadow thickened. The toddler began to cry, his tiny hands trembling as the whisper grew louder, knowing him, calling him, beckoning him closer. The maid pulled him tight against her chest, refusing to let the voice draw him in, refusing to let fear steal her resolve. The house groaned like it was alive, like something inside its walls had finally awakened after years of silent watching. And in that moment, as the whisper shaped itself into a chilling command, she realized the danger was not outside, but within. The maid forced herself to stay upright as the puppies advanced again, barking at something she still couldn't see at all. The whisper twisted violently, shifting from a soft call to a deep growl that vibrated through the air like breaking metal. The hallway's shadow swelled unnaturally, stretching across the carpet like a living thing crawling toward the toddler slowly. The maid felt a coldness crawl up her spine, freezing every muscle as her instincts screamed to grab the child and run fast. But the puppies stood firm, blocking the creeping darkness, their growls harmonizing in a way no normal animals ever could. Suddenly, one puppy slammed its paw against the ground, releasing a sharp echo that made the shadow recoil violently back. A low hiss rose from the hallway, inhuman and distorted, like something frustrated that its advance had been interrupted. The toddler clung to the maid's shirt, his tears drying as he watched the puppies with a strange trust deeper than fear. The room flickered, lights flashing in short bursts as if the electricity fought against a force draining its strength. The maid whispered prayers under her breath, her voice shaking, unsure if anything could protect them from the unseen horror. A deep rumble echoed beneath the floorboards once more, shaking the furniture as though something massive turned below. Then, from inside the shadow, two faint glowing shapes appeared. Eyes, watching them with cold, predatory intent. The glowing eyes blinked slowly, their gaze locking directly onto the toddler with a hunger that froze the maid's blood. She staggered backward, gripping the child, but the puppies leaped forward again, blocking the creature's line of sight. A harsh, echoing screech shot down the hallway, rattling the windows and making the floor vibrate beneath their feet. The shadow swirled, coiling around itself like a storm, revealing a distorted silhouette shifting unnaturally in the dark. The maid's heartbeat thundered as she noticed the scratch marks on the wall begin to glow faintly, pulsing like signals. Then she realized the scratches weren't warnings. They were boundaries the creature had been trying to break through. The puppies barked in perfect rhythm, a strange pattern that caused the glowing marks to flicker and weaken the shadow. The creature hissed again, shrinking back momentarily, enraged by their unexpected ability to hold it at a distance. The toddler reached out toward the puppies, his tiny hand trembling as he whispered their names softly through fear. The maid knelt beside him, shielding him with her arm as the shadow surged again, furious and desperate to get closer. A sudden wave of cold wind surged from the hallway, sweeping through the room and extinguishing every ounce of warmth. The puppies stood taller, fur bristling, prepared for the next strike as the creature let out a guttural roar of fury. The creature lunged, its shadowy form shooting forward like a spear, but an unseen barrier halted it inches from the child. The puppies howled in unison, their voices piercing the air, creating vibrations that pushed the shadow backward violently. The maid watched in disbelief as the floor beneath the puppies glowed faintly, forming a circle she'd never noticed before. The toddler clapped suddenly, not in joy, but as if responding instinctively, his eyes reflecting the same faint glow. The creature recoiled, its form flickering, confused by the toddler's glowing eyes and the sudden surge of energy in the room. The maid felt the warmth return briefly around the child, as though something invisible was shielding him from harm. The creature roared again, this time in frustration, slamming against the invisible barrier that held it trapped in place. The walls groaned, the lights dimmed, and the pressure in the air tightened like the house itself was being pulled apart. The puppies barked louder, their paws planted firmly, refusing to let the creature take even a single step forward. The toddler reached out once more, whispering a soft sound that made the barrier flicker and pulse brighter than before. The creature let out a keening wail, shrinking away from the light as though it was burning holes into its shifting form. Then, suddenly, the hallway fell silent again, the shadow retreating deep into the darkness like a wounded animal. The maid remained frozen, panting, staring into the hallway where the shadow had vanished, as if swallowed by the walls. The puppies kept their stance, eyes fixed forward, waiting as though they knew the creature wasn't truly gone yet. The toddler leaned against her shoulder, exhausted, his glowing eyes fading slowly until they looked normal once more. A soft hum pulsed through the living room floor again, but this time it felt calmer, almost gentle, like a warning ending. The maid looked down at the puppies, realizing they weren't just pets. They were guardians, placed here for a purpose. She remembered the strange adoption papers, the odd warnings, the unexplained insistence that these pups stay with the child. It all made sense now. The puppies weren't protecting the toddler out of affection. They were protecting something within him. A soft breeze blew from the hallway again, stirring the curtains, carrying a faint echo of the creature's earlier wail. The maid felt the presence lingering, not defeated, but watching, waiting for another chance to break through the boundary. She hugged the toddler tightly, promising herself she would never leave him alone with the unknown darkness again. The puppies began pacing in front of the hallway, sniffing the air, making sure the creature had fully withdrawn. But the deep, distant thud beneath the floor reminded her that the danger wasn't over, only delayed. Night fell quickly, faster than usual, wrapping the house in thick darkness as the maid lit every lamp she could find. The toddler slept in her arms, unaware of the silent war fought to protect him from the thing lurking in the shadows. The puppies lay around him in a perfect circle, their bodies forming a protective barrier even while they rested. But their ears twitched at every creak, every shift of the house, as though expecting the creature to return. The maid sat beside them, wide awake, unable to erase the image of glowing eyes watching them from the hallway gloom. She replayed the whispers calling the toddler's name, the unnatural chill, the shadow that moved like a living nightmare. The room felt fragile now, as if one wrong breath could shatter whatever fragile peace the puppies had created tonight. A soft thump echoed from the hallway again, faint but deliberate enough to jolt her heart into her throat instantly. The puppies rose at once, forming the same protective formation, their eyes glowing faintly in the lamp's dim reflection. The maid whispered to the child, promising she would keep him safe, though fear twisted every word she tried to speak. Another whisper drifted through the dark hallway, softer this time, like the creature was testing their defenses again. And as the puppies growled in warning, she realized this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of what lived beneath.